me and it's Jared, the ultimate stud, absolute stud. I'm Judah Buddha. Let's hit the intro and get right into fantasy. So we're back. Sorry, we skipped all last week. We got other things going on. Sorry, folks.
As
I'm glad to be back.
As I always say, it's the best way to build an audience is just to randomly dip out on them without telling them. But
Hey, sorry, guys.
No, but it's the truth. I mean, like, just when hey, if someone wants to fund us full time to do this, I'm down for that in a heartbeat. And really, I think you're going to make your money back if you're putting enough into it, because I will, I give the best advice. I mean, we all do. Mine might be like a little bit more accurate, only because I know player names and can give you the accurate player names. Whereas Judah,
that's huge.
Whoever,
that's huge.
You're not going to know who his information
You're
may be
on
right.
A whim and a feeling with me.
Well, the prediction might be right, but it's going to take you forever to figure out which player he's talking about. So anybody, so who wants to fund us? Whoever wants to fund us, we'll come do this full time. I will, at least.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we'll do it all the time. If you want to fund us,
that's right. We'll do a show. We'll do a show every day.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Drew Vanno already. Oh. Drew Vanno already in and saying, appreciate you guys. Well, dude, I appreciate you, Drew.
We do appreciate you.
Man, Drew is always right there with us right away. And so shoot your questions to us, man. We want to hit a little of the news. We're going to get right into it. We're going to do it an hour today. We always say that, but today we are going to stick to that. Got things to do. And some of the major news, I think the main thing that I wanted to kind of get your take on, two things. One, how's my sound? Am I okay? Do I need to?
I think it sounds maybe a hair, but you're okay.
Okay. The first thing is, what's his name? Ingram. Speaking of which, not knowing, Ingram going back to the Saints. What does this mean? I don't really know. What does this mean for Ingram? Like, we know what he is, but what does this mean for David Johnson for you? Do you feel like, I went out and picked up David Johnson just thinking running backs are hard to find. Starting running backs are real hard to find. David Johnson is probably going to be the main carrier here.
Yeah. I would probably see David Johnson in sort of like, if you want a comp of a player, in terms of what kind of person you're going to get out of him, I would say maybe like a Michael Carter, where, maybe you're going to get 11, 12 points as long as he scores a touchdown. We don't know for sure exactly what that backfield's going to look like. I mean, are they going to give more carries to Phillip Lindsay? I mean, last week it looked like David Johnson was kind of starting to get more of a presence back there. That's based off of 7 carries for 25 yards, but he had some in the receiving game too. It's not like Phillip Lindsay's been lighting it up or anything. That same game, he only had 2 carries for 8 yards, but it has bounced back and forth a little bit. So I can't, you can't really be sure how that's going to go.
But for sure that Ingram's not getting any carries. So,
yeah, Ingram's gone. And Tyrod Taylor's about to come back. So that offense is going to get at least somewhat better. So yeah, I would, I picked up Ingram in some places. I think, if you have Alvin Kamara, you want to have him as a handcuff. And I think he's probably going to eat into Kamara's production a little bit. I don't know how
He
much,
might.
but yeah.
It's interesting because last Monday, while I was watching, I have Alvin Kamara everywhere, or most places, and watching him just eat, I thought, well, I kept wondering. I was watching who came in for him. Divine Ozigbo was coming in for him. Just didn't look great, and I was just thinking, man, if Alvin gets if Kamara gets hurt here or next week, of course now it's this week against Tampa Bay, which is a really tough defense
Mm-hmm.
against running backs. Who would I go to? Who would I pivot to? And the the fantasy gods answered my prayers. However, I was hesitant to pick up Ingram just because he may be the guy to handcuff Kamara, but he's not going to get even a fraction of the production that Kamara is getting everything off of catches. And
Mm-hmm.
though I mean Ingram he has caught a lot in the past, especially for the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see him being the same kind of leaning on, especially if Michael Thomas comes back next week or something like that. I just can't see him being, a fraction of what Kamara is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of it's kind of tough to know because I mean, with like goal line situations, are they going to, potentially give him goal line carries? How many?
That's true.
I would have to look up see what the Saints are even getting in terms of goal line carries though, because it seems like that their scoring is either like Jameis Winston bombs or dumping off to Kamara, and Kamara's running it in from a ways out. So I would have to look up. I know at one point Jonathan Taylor was leading in terms of carries inside the 5 or something like that. I mean, Alvin Kamara has in 6 games he has 1 rushing touchdown, and I'm curious to see how far out it was. I'm actually going to look that up while we're.
Oh, I'm sure it was like 20 or more.
Right. I can tell you pretty quick here.
Okay.
So it was. Yeah, it's 23-yard touchdown. So that's his closest. He has 1 rushing touchdown, and that's his closest one is from 23 yards out. So does it even matter if Mark Ingram gets goal line carries because they're not in that position that often, it seems. Again, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I just know like from looking at box scores and stuff because I haven't watched them specifically a lot. Looking at box scores, Jameis throwing these deep touchdown passes, or Kamara taking it in from a distance. So I don't know how much standalone value Mark Ingram has, like you said, because how many carries is he going to get? Goal line carries probably aren't going to be enough or production is going to be enough to really make him. So I like him as a handcuff, but beyond that, yeah, I don't think you're like starting him the way you did a few years ago where he was there and they were getting more.
Right.
He was getting more of a share.
Right now, he may be. Hey, look, we're watching some older guys do a little resurrection, thanks to what do you call circumstance. We see Cobby, my main man Cobby, coming in and getting 2 touchdowns, almost 3. I wouldn't say almost 3, but potentially he could have. But what a great game that was. Did you watch any of that game?
I'm sorry, which game was this again? No, the Houston Arizona, or I'm sorry, the Arizona Green Bay game.
Yeah,
I did. I watched almost all of that. So yeah, it was interesting because I didn't know for sure if the Packers would win, but I thought it'd be close. I thought, this is just setting up to be one of those games where it's like, oh, the Packers don't have any chance, and then they're going to go in and at least keep it like where they lose by a field goal or 4 points or something like that. And wow, that's a pretty interesting. It was interesting in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Not so interesting in other ways because they really just kind of corral. Rodgers didn't have his weapons. He was missing Devontae Adams, which meant I was also
Yeah.
missing Devontae Adams in my matchup
Ooh, you got
with
him.
with Drew this week, who's probably gonna just beat me senseless and stay
Oh man.
undefeated. It's a bad week to not have Devontae, especially coming off of I just had I don't remember if it was him or Deontay who had a bye the previous week, but anyway,
Yeah. Deontay
so
did, yeah.
yeah, so that I was hoping to get both of them, this week to that. Anyway, enough about my problems. But so Rodgers didn't have Devontae, he didn't have MVS, he didn't have Lazard, and then he lost Tanyan, later in the game to a
Yeah.
torn ACL. So it was basically just like
Yeah.
throwing to running backs and then hitting a receiver every now and then.
Yeah.
But it still worked because they contained Kyler Murray in the pocket. They made him throw from the pocket. Hopkins was kind of banged up, so he didn't really get to play the whole game. And when he was in there, he had that one big pass or catch. But
But
so it
it looked
was
like he was just in there to get what do you call
like
it when
a decoy. Decoy.
decoy? There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so it was in some ways it was a very interesting, but it was like interesting / boring in some ways until the end, I think. And then they had those goal line stands. I don't know what AJ Green was doing on that play. The memes were great on
Yeah.
Twitter. Um,
From the whole game, right?
well, for the whole game, but especially, yeah, you had the Rogers photo that turned into a meme, and then you had AJ Green. There was a couple of ones that cracked me up off of that because one, it was like a meme where it said like controller disconnected, and like as if you were playing Madden. And that's what happened to him. Right. And then the other one was this guy trying to get into his workplace and like the key card won't work, and it's like AJ Green today. The memes were just like a plus memes from this.
Oh, mercy.
So I don't know what happened on that, but I think what was interesting, my takeaway from that game was I had, heard a lot about the Cardinals, seen their record, and then to see them and it be like, oh, you guys can't really do a whole lot if someone contains Kyler Murray in the pocket.
Yeah.
And JJ Watt is we also got like that day or the day before, I think maybe it was I don't remember what day it was, but anyway, JJ Watt
It's good. Yeah.
probably out for the season
Out
again.
for
I
the
think he just
season. Yeah.
needs to hang it up. So
Man.
suddenly, so this week just kind of went from me thinking, oh, maybe Arizona is the team or are one of the top teams to beat, to being like, probably not,
Mm.
after all.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just talking to a friend about how I felt like Kyler was a little iffy. I think he's a great player, but if he gets banged up, he's not the same guy.
He's
You know,
not.
he has to be in tip-top condition. But when he's in tip-top condition, he's a Ferrari. But
Yeah.
as soon as he starts to break down, it's like, let's take out
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it'll be interesting going forward, seeing what happens with that team, what happens with for fantasy, especially. I mean, whoever had him in fantasy was him, and Rogers was hurting
Mm-hmm.
this week.
Yeah. Right.
Kyler Murray.
Right.
um, let's see. We've got a few things here. Caven says, "Great fantasy football, greatest fantasy football show ever." Wow, thanks, Caven. Check out Caven's. What is it called? The Allied
Allied.
Rivals.
Yeah.
Him and AJ. He says we miss AJ. AJ is out on assignment, so he'll be back, but he's on secret assignment out there traveling. All right, and so Anthony says Jonathan Taylor seems to be clicking on all cylinders. Is he arguably the best running back in the NFL, not in Derrick Henry? You answer this because I really don't like Jonathan Taylor. You do.
Yeah, this just feels like one of your unexplainable, inexplicable, I don't like this player sort of things, which I'm still not even really sure if you like Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry,
I
you
don't.
know, okay, there you go. There you go. So Judah just hates the best running back. But the better you are as a running back, the more he distrusts you. So I don't know. Explain that to me.
Well,
So
Alvin Kamara is my favorite running back,
yeah,
fantasy
yeah.
wise.
So you know, production wise, I mean, Jones or Taylor is third right now behind Henry and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones has had, one more game than
Mm.
Taylor has because of that Thursday night game. So, yeah, he came into the week number two in production. I I do like him as the the second best. Um, I would say I would probably throw Zeke up there. Two, I here's I know Kamara's done really well for the most part, but that Saints offense kind of scares me a little bit. Basically, like if you have an offense where the running back is, you've got a star running back and they're the focal point and they can move the ball well enough, then those are, I think, the three criteria I need for like who's going to be, at the top of my list. So I would dock Kamara a little bit because for the reasons we just talked about, because I don't trust that Saints offense to get in the red zone. He's got to produce in other ways, and he has. But what happens when he gets into some matchups where he's not able to? So uh, Taylor's definitely, I think top three for me because that offense. Um, he's got one of the best offensive lines. He's the he's the focal point of that offense. He got off to a slow start, but one of those games was against the Rams, which is it tends to be a tough front to run against. So I like him a lot, but I think there's a lot of guys. It's kind of like Derrick Henry and the rest. Derrick Henry's in a class by himself, and then you've got all the rest. And so I would put, a little group right behind there that would be like Taylor, Aaron Jones, Elliott, Kamara, Austin Eckler, even like a James Robinson. James Robinson, the past 4 weeks after those first two rough weeks, I traded for him everywhere I could, and basically he's averaging 20 points a week over the last 4 weeks. He's got about 80 points or
Wow.
so. So,
Yeah, that was a good call.
so I like Taylor. Is he number two? I think he's going to finish in the top five up there somewhere. You can easily make a case for him being number two, but it's kind of Derrick Henry and the rest to me.
What are your thoughts on Julio Jones going forward? Is he droppable or should I keep him on the bench? Man, that's tough. I've always thought, I mean, for 3 years now, I've been anti Julio Jones. He goes to a new offense. I was like, he's totally off the board for me.
Yeah.
But he has produced at least 2 games this season, not hugely, right? But I
So
think
he's had one.
week
He's had
one,
so week two he had
week two.
15.8 points. He had 128 yards, 6 catches. That is the only other week where he's been above 7.4 points because
Okay.
he's missed two. He missed the Jets and the Jaguars, which would have been great spots to put up some points. And then he just hasn't. Every other week he's had 3 catches or fewer and hasn't topped 59 yards in any of them.
Wow. Droppable.
Um, I think he is droppable. Yeah. Um, I mean, he and Allen Robinson both. I mean, Allen Robinson has started to make his way onto a lot of my waiver wires. I think overall he's still like 85% owned. But that's across all leagues. And I think out of mine, he was after this past week's game where he had 2 catches for 16 yards on 4 targets. He was on like 40% of my waiver wires, like 8 out of 20 leagues. He got picked up in most of them, but he's floating around. But I think a lot of these guys, people are just tired of waiting, living on the name, OBJ, Allen Robinson, Julio. I mean, it's just not happening, and there doesn't really seem to be any reason that it is going to happen. None of them are tied to great quarterbacks. So I think all those guys are droppable.
Well, would you drop him for, and this will segue us into the next thing I wanted to talk about. Would you drop him for Boston Scott? Or who's the other running back there that's probably more predominantly desirable?
Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, I probably would. I mean, unless you're thin at receiver and stacked at running back and don't, need a running back, I would drop him. I would drop him for them.
Yeah. So it looks like Sanders, he's put on the IR. Have we seen yet if it's the 3-week IR or not? Let me effort that real quick.
Right. So I don't know.
They haven't said, so it could be all season long IR.
I guess right now, like at least Yahoo is treating this as a 3-week IR in terms of its projections. But yeah, there's not. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of specific information out there. At the same time, like you have to limit how excited you get about, I think, any of those guys. I mean, Miles Sanders had 15.3 points in week 1. He hasn't topped 7.6 since then. So, if you need a running back, you can always pick up one of those, especially in deeper leagues, but you got to keep expectations pretty low.
I've always been a big proponent of Boston Scott. I think he's talent-wise, he's a step above some of these other like Ozigbo or backup running backs. And you see the coaching staff tends to like him, give him a lot more snaps than a typical just backup. Even during the year, he gets some play coming in every now and then. But Gainwell has had a couple of games where he was the main receiving back, right?
Right. Yeah, they've never seemed to fully trust Miles Sanders. So Gainwell's been, he's had a couple of big games off of receiving efforts. So
yeah. Okay, Drew Vanna wants to know Elijah Mitchell, Chuba Hubbard, Alex Collins, pick 2 PPR. I gotta go with Chuba Hubbard. I don't think Alex Collins, he's iffy to play. So I mean, I think it's just go with Elijah Mitchell and Chuba. What do you think? And do you have any other choices, Drew Vano? Because I don't love Elijah Mitchell.
Collins every week just seems to be questionable.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard to not be tempted to play him against Jacksonville. Chuba and Collins both have pretty nice matchups with the Falcons and the Jaguars. Elijah Mitchell, I'd have to look up what Chicago has done against the run.
They've been pretty stout.
I think they've been solid. Yeah. Did I call it? Yeah. Eli Mitchell. I'm making his name.
Elijah.
Maybe the full name's but he goes by Eli. We're making it fancier than it really is.
Yeah, Eli Mitchell, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, we know San Francisco likes to use the run. We know Chicago is bad overall, which could lead to a lot of opportunities. This is tough because I like all three. I actually like all three options this week. Um, I would be, uh, but then I remember that Geno Smith plays quarterback for the
Yeah.
Seahawks right now. Um, and maybe that's the deciding factor because even though Collins has had, you know, um, he's had a solid game without, Russell Wilson. Um, yeah, I think I would probably have to say, Mitchell and Hubbard. But yeah, not so much because of Collins being banged up, but
Matchup.
because of because of Geno Smith.
Right. Yeah. Now, is this Chuba's last week? Are we getting CMC back next week? Have we heard anything? Yeah. Okay.
It's the little meme. It's the little meme.
I did see some rumors that they were looking to trade CMC for if he can be traded. So trade deadline's Friday or something, right? No, wait. When's trade
I'll have to look
deadline?
that up. I'll have to look it up.
But
Usually, I think it's
I
a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Tuesday. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think it is this Tuesday. But um, I saw that he may be involved in a deal for Watson. If they can work out something where some of these teams are saying, can we work out something if Watson does turn out to be in big trouble, then we get stuff back, or we don't have to give you the picks or something like that. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of new
Yeah,
territory.
I would love to see a deal like that just because it would be fun and exciting and then you wait to see what if this just goes horribly wrong. Um, I would love for him to do something like that just as a fan who doesn't, but I wouldn't want to be the team involved in it, just like as a third party observer. I'd love to be able to see that.
Like
Um,
watching a train wreck.
uh, yeah, I mean, probably in some ways the smart thing would be maybe for Carolina to trade Christian McCaffrey because it's now starting to look like he's not going to be able to stay healthy as good as he is. Um, Usually those deals don't happen. I mean, I would be shocked if it did happen. And from what I've read, it doesn't sound like Deshaun Watson. The latest thing I read was that he had waived or he would be willing to waive his no trade clause for Miami, but not
Mhm.
for Carolina.
Yeah.
And I think Carolina would probably be a better situation for him. I think he's probably going to Miami for the city, not the team. And that
Mm.
seems like probably just about the worst place that he could go under the circumstances.
Yeah.
um, if you've
Yeah.
ever been to Miami, or just I don't know. Anyway, that sounds like just a bad idea. Like taking
Yeah.
a bad situation and making it worse. But I just don't see that happening. I don't see them trading CMC, but we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. Should we view AJ Aaron Jones as an even backfield in terms of touch count moving forward? No. Um, One thing is Thursday night, I watched the whole game and I saw a lot of people complain about AJ Dillon, and he did get a lot of snaps, but I just think they look so much at game plan, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just using him as a hammer, and they needed to keep Aaron Jones fresh as a pass receiver because they didn't have three of their wide receivers. So I would say it was more of an aberration as far as him getting. Although he does well with the touches he gets. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're saying should I pick up AJ Dillon off of the waiver wire? Yeah. If should I put him in my flex over some of these guys? So over Collins, I would say yes. Next week or whatever. But But are you saying is this going to really hurt Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones got 20 points, 20 or more fantasy points. I don't think you're complaining, right?
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's starting to get a lot of carries. I mean, three out of the last 5 games, he's had double digit carries. He had 15 in one of those, 11 in one of those, 16 in one of those. 2 weeks ago, he also had 3 carries for 6 yards, and I guess he lost a fumble because he had negative zero point 0.7 points. And so I think if you own Aaron Jones, you need to hopefully have AJ Dillon. He's
Yeah,
rostered in most of my leagues, so if you don't
me
have him
too.
now, you're probably not going to get him. Overall, he's only like 63% rostered, so he's probably available in a lot of free leagues. Um,
Hmm.
I don't think it's anything that's really going to hurt Aaron Jones that much because I think that game especially was about the fact that they needed to use the running backs that much because of the absence of receivers and then Tanyan too. Um, but it's not a situation where it's not James Conner and Chase Edmonds where Chase Edmonds is getting a lot of the stuff in the open field and then Conner comes in for the goal line stuff. Aaron Jones is still the goal line back and he's still more of the receiving back. And so, yeah, AJ Dillon is getting a lot of carries, but he's not really getting those in situations that are going to hurt Aaron Jones as much. I think it's
Right.
just I think it's more of a thing where that's just kind of how they like to, when Jamal Williams was there, they like to keep Aaron Jones fresh by using him. So
Yeah.
they seem to like to limit Aaron Jones to around 15 carries or so. Um, so he's still gonna blow up. He's still gonna blow up for
Yeah.
games, and he's not just know that he's not going to be a 20 plus carry guy, but doesn't have to be.
Right. And I would look at matchups and maybe play both of them if you have both of them, or trade. I would trade for AJ Dillon at this point. I mean, because running backs are so in dire need. If somebody's willing to take, would you trade like who would you trade like a wide receiver, middling wide receiver? Would you trade? Let me see. Someone like a Browns wide receiver, so like OBJ or Landry. I'd trade them right away for AJ Green, wouldn't you?
I would make that trade. I wouldn't take that trade if I was on
Right, that's what
the
I
side
mean.
of yeah.
Well, yeah, and who's going to take that? Is there somebody that'd be a little bit more enticing? What about a Corey Davis, maybe?
Yeah, I think it just depends on that team's need. Like
Yeah.
if you're a team that's like 6-1 and uh you've got AJ Dillon, but you don't have Aaron Jones, you're probably better off just hanging on to AJ Dillon because if something happened to Aaron Jones, then suddenly you've
Oh
got
yeah.
a top 5 running back. So I think on the other hand, if it's a team that's 4-3 or 3-4, whatever, and they've got AJ Dillon just hanging out, like you could probably give them something that would benefit them. And if they're smart, they would be willing to take maybe, I mean, and you might have to overpay even a little bit, but
Yeah.
if you've got enough depth, like I mean, I've got a league where if Dak is out,
We need to talk about that too.
we need to talk about that. And the tough thing is like not knowing if Dak is out or not. I've got my bench is so deep. Like my worst players are like Chase Claypool and T Higgins, and I don't have anybody else to drop. So it's kind of like if Dak's going to be out and he's not going on IR, or he won't be out, or well, he won't be out. He won't be ruled out until Monday night. I couldn't wait till then to pick up somebody else. So I've either got to roll the dice and hope that he plays, or I've got to drop like a T Higgins just to get a quarterback
Oh,
to fill his spot.
ouch. That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, T. Higgins is borderline droppable. Just, I mean, just from a stats, just
Mm-hmm.
from box score perspective, but we
Yeah.
know that he's liable to blow up in any game. So that'd be
Yeah.
tough because his skill wise and
Yeah.
situation wise, you don't want to drop him,
No.
man.
And I think he had his most targets last game. He had like 15 targets. He didn't do a whole lot with them, but
Man.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's a tough one. That's a tough one to drop just because of, what he did last year, what he could do, all that. So
So by all accounts, it looks like it could be a game time decision
that's what they've said.
for Dak.
Yeah, that's what they've said.
I
And
think
it's a
the
Monday
problem
night.
is it's on the same leg that he broke his ankle on.
Hmm.
So there are some minor complications. As I guess I am no doctor, but I assume that breaking all those little things in there would probably, there's still some scar tissue, what have you, and so if you pull muscles in that area, it becomes a little bit more scary, I'm sure, for the team doctors and what have you, and they don't want to re-injure, re-aggravate, or anything like that, right?
I would imagine so. I didn't remember even which ankle it was for sure, but regardless, um, yeah, when you've got a franchise quarterback that's coming off of ankle surgery and um, the possibility of making it worse, um, you know, eh, I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if they're going to play him or not, and it's the Monday night game, so
Cooper Cooper Rush is
Cooper
the
Rush.
backup. Who is that? I've never even heard of him.
No, no idea, no idea.
And it's against the Vikings, which is not. So how does this affect? How? So yeah, like you're. I mean, I think you made the good point there. It's Monday night, so
Mhm.
it's extra scary. How does this affect his pass catches? And
Right.
I mean, Ezekiel Elliott is going to be could be affected by this.
I mean, I think you got to start Zeke regardless. Amari Cooper, no thanks. He's going to be on the bench
No.
for me. CeeDee Lamb is probably the toughest one to try to figure out what to do with because he's so explosive that he doesn't, have to get a ton of catches. I mean, he could, turn one or two into some, major production. Um, so for me, it's definitely start Zeke. Don't start Amari unless you're just really thin at the position, and then CeeDee Lamb. It probably kind of depends, on who else you got.
Okay.
And the other thing
Well, I'm
too,
sure.
though, well, and just to finish that off, the other thing too is, yeah, again, you have to make that decision really Sunday, because I mean, you could. It's not the same. You
Tomorrow
could
morning.
still wait. Yeah, you could still wait and say, okay, even if Dak's out, CeeDee Lamb's my better option to roll with. But if you do have some other good options, then you might want to go ahead and use those and not chance it.
Well, the Monday night game. I mean, the Sun. Let's see. The Monday night game is who? It's Cowboys. There's.
Uh,
Oh no, that's Cowboys Vikings is Sunday night game. It's not Monday.
okay. Um,
So the Monday night game is the Giants Chiefs.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, it is. You're right. It is Sunday night. So there is one other one there. If you've got, you know, so in terms of, but that still really doesn't change anything except for if you have Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones as
Mm-hmm.
a backup on your bench, then you could pivot to them if you wanted to. But otherwise, if you
And
have any other quarterback, you've got to, or any other, quarterback as your backup, then you've got to make that decision whether or not you want to risk it on Dak or go with them. So
well, and it helps a little bit in the sense that we'll probably know tomorrow afternoon, right? Like, I don't know.
supposedly
Maybe
the,
not.
the way they phrased it, they are taking it up to game time.
Wow. Okay. Holding the cards close to the chest.
Yeah.
I probably would go out if Kirk Cousins is out there. I think he could have a brilliant game, especially if
Mhm.
Dak's not in. I think this could be a huge
Mhm.
surge for the Vikings. All right, we got
Yeah.
lots of questions. So let me get to the questions. Let's wrap this up. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about. So that's good. Thank you, Anthony, by the way, for tuning in. And Drew was just saying that's all he's got. Yeah, running back depth is tough these days. Bossman Fat, thanks for joining. I hope you're still with us. Cole Beasley, Melvin Gordon at flex. That's tough, but I mean, depending on if it's a PPR, I think I'm going with Melvin Gordon. Uh, Although that's really tough. I'm tempted to go Beasley, especially. I mean, if it's PPR, I'm going Beasley. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough because I mean Cole Beasley's just boom or bust. Melvin Gordon
Yeah.
always seems to kind of split it. You're typically getting about 8 to 10 points out of Melvin Gordon. Beasley, you are looking at maybe 1 or 2 or 15 to 20. you know, um, the games, game script just is varies wildly for Cole Beasley. So they're playing Miami again. Last time he only caught 4 balls for 36 yards. I don't know that it'll be the same this time, but you're looking at more of a boom or bust option there. I would,
Mm.
and I unless you think you need the points, unless you feel like you're chasing points this week and you need to swing for it, I would go probably Gordon.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're in agreement in that one. Drew was saying he's a big Carolina fan. Hey, I don't know if you live in North Carolina, but I do, and both of us do. I think, right? No,
I
how
I
did I
do
get this
not.
wrong? You do
I
not.
live across the state line, but I have worked a good bit
Yeah,
in North Carolina. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. You're close to North Carolina. And Darnold, man, I had such high hopes for him. He really has crashed and burned, huh?
He has. I
That's
was
sad.
when he started off hot. I thought back to what I was thinking in the offseason where the Colts had some different options of like, okay, do we trade up in the draft for a quarterback? Do we trade for Carson Wentz? Do we trade for Darnold? And at the time, I was happy that they traded for Carson Wentz because I felt like, you can't really get up high enough in the draft to get the player I
Mm,
would want. Um, Darnold, I just don't trust him. He hasn't really shown me enough. And Wentz has been at times very good, and so I was happy with that deal. Starting off the season, that deal that I felt like an idiot. Since then, it's kind of turned back around though. Like
yeah.
Wentz once he started to get healthier, has been playing better. If they can ever keep him and the offensive line and their receivers all out there at one time, which hasn't really happened up to this point, then I feel pretty good about that. Darnold, Darnold is starting to look like the old Sam Darnold. And some of the draft picks, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, looking kind of iffy. So I've now pivoted
Man.
back. I've pivoted back to being like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that Carson Wentz trade, all things considered. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people were saying Carson Wentz is going to be a game manager, and he is because of his high NFL acumen and intelligence.
Mhm.
But he's also, I mean, he's not afraid to throw it.
Yeah.
And for fantasy, I have him in a lot of places, and he's done fine.
I think he could take.
Um,
I think he could take off, and he gets the Titans this week, and they're just the worst. The worst pass defense,
I've
basically. So,
yeah, I've got to make a decision between him and Joe Burrow, so that's a tough one. Who are the best football players in the world? You asked this before. Um, I see what
AJ,
you're doing.
AJ's not here, so we can't help you.
I like Rolando though. He's the only one I know. Ronaldo. No, I can't even say his name. All right. Thanks for tuning in though. Who do you guys? Who do you guys think is going to have the best game? Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Tony, or Darius Slayton? I don't think Darius is. Yeah, I think Darius Slayton might be playing. I think Shepard might play, probably play. I mean, Kadarius might not play. So
Yeah, it's just like the typical like New York Giant. They spin a wheel like before
yeah,
the game every time they spin a wheel to see who's going to be in and who's going to be out. Uh, I mean, it really does. Good luck. Good luck getting anybody to call that one right because who knows who's going to be in for them. I mean, if they were all healthy, then it's a different question. But I mean, the first thing you have to address is who's even going to play,
who's gonna
and
play?
we don't know.
Now, I think the most likely to play is Slade. I think he's already been cleared.
Right, but if and he probably maybe he's got some value if the others don't play. But if they're in, then his value just rapidly plummets.
Yeah,
So
that's you're right. And can I do? I am all in on Kadarius Toney. All of a sudden, I saw some game tape on him. A lot of people like pointing out some real smart and just talent. Out the wazoo as far as his ability to make plays. Get separation and so I don't know if you saw in that one league where I think I'm like first or second place. So I'm like 6-1. I was like, I'm gonna go get him. And I traded a lot for him. Can't, I can't remember what I traded for him, but I think he's worth getting if you think you're gonna make a playoff run because I like his schedule and if he's healthy. Now I'm gambling a lot because none of those guys can stay healthy. I think he's a good guy to get out to have for a late season run. I don't know what you think about that.
I I think he can be. It just that the Giants just it's tough for me to trust them because they're just so many guys
Yeah.
are hurt and including him. And there's just been I mean I forget who all they have. Like I almost forgot about Kenny Galladay even being there.
Yeah,
Kenny Galladay
it's true.
is still there. You've got Kenny Galladay, you've got Sterling Shepard, you've got Kadarius Toney, you've got Darius
Yeah,
Slayton, you've got Evan Ingram, you've got Saquon Barkley, you've got Devontae Booker. And I mean, it's just
yeah,
and Daniel Jones. You never know week to week what you're going to get out of him. I love Tony's talent, but man, I just
yeah.
hate that like again roulette of like what's going to happen this week. It's like I don't know. Yeah,
We really do need to get one of those, like a spin the
yeah,
wheel.
yeah. Right. We do. Yeah.
All right, who are you looking at this week as a better defense and their matchup? Steelers or Carolina? Steelers are playing the Browns, a little bit banged up Browns. I think the Browns are getting everybody back though this week. And Carolina is playing. Who is Carolina playing again?
Carolina's playing the Falcons, and the Falcons have started to wake up a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
on offense in particular. So,
well,
mm,
I think what makes the difference for me here, especially now, if you have both of these already on your roster, then this doesn't really decide it as much. But if there's one out there you're thinking of picking them up or something like that, or only keeping one, then I would go with Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh. Not even so much for this week as much as the next 2 weeks after that, because then Pittsburgh gets
mm,
Chicago at home, and then Detroit at
mm.
home. So
Ooh,
I
that's
I
nice.
I like those matchups.
I agree. Yep, I'd go Steelers. All right, who wins this trade? Chris Godwin, Damian Harris, Jalen Waddle for Deontay Johnson and Daryl Henderson. That's an interesting trade. However, man, that's tough. But
It is,
I
yeah.
like the Chris Godwin, Damian Harris, and Jalen Waddle, just because Harris is to me on par with Darrell Henderson, if not a little bit better. And then you get,
Mhm.
I mean, Waddle's coming off, and I think Chris Godwin is just as good as Deontay Johnson. So really, you get one extra player. So I like the Waddle side. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty even. Jalen Waddle, it's hard to say because if Will Fuller and Devontae Parker are back, I don't know how that changes things for him. But Damian Harris, yeah, Damian Harris is looking pretty good. Last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
17 and 24 points. He's had over 100 yards in each game. Chargers run defense is up next. That's a nice matchup. He doesn't have a terrible schedule there. So as much as I love Deontay, I do like Deontay better than Chris Godwin.
You do?
Godwin.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I mean, Deontay's been at, week 1 he had 12 points. The other weeks he's been at 14 to 20 every week. Godwin,
Mm.
it's a little more dependent on what's going on. Godwin's sort of that. He's still productive as Brady's basically number 3 or 4 option, but um, you know, if Antonio Brown is back in there, if Rob Gronkowski's back in there, uh, I I don't know. I don't know what Chris Godwin's production looks like. So I think that's
Yeah, that's true.
a pretty even trade because I like Deontay better than Godwin. I like Damian Harris better than Darrell Henderson.
Darrell.
Darrell.
Darrell. Yeah.
Um,
Or Darrell. I don't know. Yeah.
Waddle is kind of not a
He's an
huge
X
fact.
factor, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if it depends on the league too. Like if you're in a deep league, then getting that third player where it's hard to find somebody off the bench or off the waiver wire, that can make a difference. If it's a PPR league, where Waddle is catching a ton of balls, that could make a difference. So I
Yeah.
think it's a pretty even trade without knowing, kind of the depth of the league, what the rest of your team looked like beforehand,
Yeah.
and or even the format.
Yes. And thanks for joining us, Diamond Gamer. I think you've joined us before. I appreciate you coming back. Mr. Curly Wolf, long time no see. Y'all trade Mixon, A Rob, or Julio for JT, or Saquon Fournette for Kamara. Oh, okay, so Mixon, A Rob for Julio, JT. I mean, I'd just drop. You do that and just drop Julio. Get rid of A Rob. Um, I mean, Mixon for JT is great. I mean, you're upgraded. You did that, right? You did something similar to that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I did do that. Yeah, I'd do that trade in a heartbeat. Trade Mixon plus either of those guys or both of them. Actually, I'd probably just get both of them off my roster if they wanted to have Robinson and Julio for Taylor. So I don't really understand the question or Saquon Fournette. I mean, because you could potentially do if you have all those players on your team, you could potentially do both those deals. So I'm not sure why that's an or question, but
Would you trade Saquon for Kamara? I definitely would.
oh
I'd
yeah,
trade Saquon and Fournette for Kamara.
that one's a little bit tougher. I don't think anybody would
Yeah,
take. I don't think anybody would take Saquon straight up for Kamara. Fournette
yeah,
now, like Fournette's suddenly very interesting. He's getting, 15 to 20 plus carries a week, 4 straight weeks of, 15 plus points. Um, that could always potentially change, but it seems like they've kind of settled on him as their go-to running back, and the guy's not that
yeah.
old. I mean, we
He
forget
gets production.
we
Yeah,
forget it seems like Fournette is this like forgotten guy who used to be good as youth, and then now, I mean, he's 26. I mean, he's in the prime,
yeah.
what should be the prime of his career, and in that Tampa offense, I don't think I would trade Saquon and Fournette for Kamara and Gordon because basically Fournette's kind of on par production with Kamara, and
Huh?
if Saquon comes back
Mm,
and can maybe stay healthy again,
yeah.
that's pretty iffy. But I would rather have that potential than I would Melvin Gordon. So I would
Yeah.
not
Oh
do
yeah.
yeah. So I would not do Saquon Fournette for Kamara Gordon, especially after then the Ingram trade, which may not have a big difference, make a big difference, but
And,
yeah.
well, but in the end, you want to have JT, Fournette, and Kamara. However, you can make that happen. If you have that, right? Like if you can make it
Well,
happen, you want to end up with JT, Fournette, Kamara.
sure, but I don't know if he can.
Preferably JT and Fournette
Sure,
from
but
your perspective.
I don't know if he can make that happen without because it sounds like he might need to give up Saquon and Fournette to get Kamara and Gordon. So if it's a question of you know,
Would you give Mixon and Saquon for Kamara? I would.
yeah, if I didn't need the depth, if I didn't need the depth, I probably would. That's a little bit tighter one for me, but I would probably do that.
I'm afraid of Saquon.
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
afraid of Saquon, and I don't want anything to do with him.
Yeah.
So.
I get that. I'm mostly on the same page, but
So I saw this coming up. Jonathan Buster says, Jared, you have great taste in hats, sir. Are we best
yes.
friends now?
Yes.
Oh, can you still do that? Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, I don't think we can't get I can do it on here. I mean, if I you know, I don't think our parent our Roto Hackers parent company is probably not gonna, kick me off here. That's a
cancel
whole
us.
that's a whole other debate, but
Disgusting debate. But
I am a Braves fan, yes, and this is an exciting time to be a Braves fan. We're back in the World Series for the first time since '99. Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know what the A is, it's old school Atlanta Braves logo. Yeah, back in the World Series for the first time since '99, which we got swept. So this is the first time we've won World Series games or any World Series game since I guess '96, and then they won the series
wow.
in '95. So it's been 26 years since our last World Series win, and 20 plus years, over 2 decades since they even made it. So it's really cool to see. Like what's kind of neat to see is, like, after the game, like the local news stations are all like reporting on the Braves, and they've got teams of reporters set up outside there. It really does like take me back to my childhood of the Braves doing well in the '90s. So that's been pretty cool. I hope they I just hope they
That's like
win.
Schmaltz era, right? Was that Schmaltz or
Well, it
I can't
wasn't
remember who?
Schmaltz, it was Smoltz, not Schmaltz.
Schmaltz.
There
Schmaltz. Okay.
less of a schm in there.
Okay.
So
Schmaltz.
yeah, Smoltz.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the era of Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz.
Yeah. Greg Maddux.
That
That's right.
famous pitching rotation that should have won way more
Yeah.
World Series than they did. We got one. All right, I guess we'll have to take it. But
So
anyway,
last night, did they win or what happened?
they
They won
won.
last
They
night.
won 2-0 last night. The rest of the series is going to be pretty interesting because they're so beaten up in terms of injuries and starters that the next couple games are going to be like bullpen games where they're
Mm.
mostly using the bullpen rather than like a true starter. Um, but
Gonna have to
if
rely on a lot of hits, offense, huh?
well, not necessarily. I mean, their bullpen's been spectacular, but it's just a question of
Really?
can they sustain it for when you're having to pitch that much. So it's going to
Okay.
be interesting to see. But they're up 2-1. Even if they lose the next two, by the time we get back to Game 6, I think that would be Max Fried again, who's should be their number one
Ooh.
starter. He hasn't really pitched like it, but hopefully they can at least split these games and then get maybe go back to Houston needing to win one of two, which I would still be pretty nervous about. But you know,
Okay.
if nothing
So
else, they're up 2-1. If nothing else, it's going to Game 6. So
that's all right. I'm past my limit. I'm zoning out at this point as far as baseball goes. I am not a fan, but I like the Braves, so it's cool. All right, for my flex position this week, Pittman, Robert Woods, T. Higgins. I like some Robert Woods action, but man, Pittman's been on fire. What do you think?
I'm inclined to go. I'm inclined to go Pittman. I mean, Robert Woods finally come on. He's still not getting a ton of targets, mostly about half a dozen targets. Um, Houston has actually been pretty decent against the pass again, whereas the Titans have been the absolute worst against
Yeah,
wide receivers.
yeah,
T.Y. Hilton may be back this week, but regardless, I fire up Pittman.
yeah. Okay, fire up some Pittman. Yeah, I think the matchup is the key there,
Yeah.
huh? All right. Roblox. My kids will tell you they've had nothing to do for the last 40 hours. They love Roblox. Sorry, Teddy Belcher. 4K Ultra wide. You look like a bot, but interesting. Roblox it has been down. It has been down, but they're working. You're getting new characters apparently. So
I have no idea what Roblox is, so I'll take your word for it.
it's like Minecraft.
Okay.
All right. So all
He's
right.
just saying
Really,
good
really
points
good
about
points, guys.
about the
Yeah,
trade
yeah.
analysis. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we already hit Jonathan. So trade Brandon Cooks for Waller. Oh, that's a good question. Would you do that? I don't know.
I would. I mean, it depends on who your other wide receivers are, and if you have, who's your other tight end or whatever. I would be inclined to do it. I mean, I know Waller's not having the best year, but if you've got, wide receivers are fairly easy to come by. Cooks has been. I know he should get better with Tyrod coming back, but 3 out of the
Yeah.
last 4 games, Cook's been rough without Tyrod. So. He's about to get the Rams. He's going to be heading to a bye a couple of weeks after that. And
Yeah.
Waller,
Get rid of him. Do it.
yeah, tight ends. I would expect, even though Waller's been, pretty pedestrian, Waller's capable of blowing up for 20 points at tight end. So depending on who your other, okay, here he says his other wide receivers are T. Higgins and AB. Currently, tight end is Cook. Okay.
Cook.
That's
Yeah,
tough.
do it. I'd do it.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, yeah, I would still do it. The situation's kind of tough because I mean T. Higgins isn't really tearing it up at the moment, and I don't know which AB, if it's Antonio Brown or AJ Brown. I guess he means Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's having some, he's missing a bunch of games. So that's still kind of tough.
He's
I'd
on
still do it.
crutches.
Yeah. That's still kind of tough, but yeah, I would do it.
All right. Well, this is the last question. We got to go. It's been an hour. Who would you start at my flex? Sutton. What is this? My Sutton and Claypool are his wide
He's
receivers.
starting wide receivers,
RBs
yeah.
are
Zeke and
okay.
Mitchell.
So the question is, does he play Judy? Does he play M. Jones? Does he play Marvin Jones, Judy, or Gibson at his flex?
Hubbard or Hubbard. Yeah.
Or oh man, I'd play Chuba. I'd play Chuba. Gibson may be a little banged up. Who are they playing? What? They are playing the Broncos. Yeah, I'd play Chuba. Who would you play?
I'd play Chuba. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to know what you're going to get week to week out of Marvin Jones, Judy just coming back off injury. Gibson is banged up week to week. The Broncos aren't the easiest run front. Yeah, I'd go Chuba.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. What was his name?
J too
J2
nice.
J2 Nice. You Hey, appreciate having you. And but we're
All right.
gonna go for now. What?
I was just saying, or I could take a stab at pronouncing it how you would have JY numeral 2 Nisei.
No, you're close, but I would have said Nisei.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. That's part of yeah, that's part of the fun is just seeing how you will mispronounce names.
I almost tried to pronounce the Hebrew one that came up. I kind of recognized, the three one is one of them is a J, Yehuda, or it's actually a Y. Well, whatever. We better go. It's getting late.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Jared. It's been fun.
Yeah, enjoyed it. We'll hopefully be back Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.